A good job with a good wage is part of the American dream, and it's also the goal of people all over the world. That's why it's important to reduce barriers that make it hard for people to climb the economic ladder. I'm Orfi Devungi, a PhD student in economics from the University of Southampton in England. In this Economics 101 video for the Center for Freedom and Prosperity, we're going to examine the impact of government intervention in the marketplace for labor by analyzing minimum wage laws. Let's start with a common sense observation. Businesses are not charities. They only create jobs when they think that the total revenue generated by new workers will exceed the total cost of employing those workers. There are lots of things that government does to make job creation more difficult. Income taxes, payroll taxes, unemployment taxes, labor laws, and worker comp laws are all part of the equation. But let's pretend those factors don't exist and just consider the impact of minimum wage laws. Imagine a worker without many skills. Maybe he didn't have a good home environment. Perhaps he was stuck in a crummy government school that promoted him from one year to the next without ever providing a decent education. But to his credit, this person enters the job market rather than being a bum, a mooch, or a thug. He may not have many skills to offer, but he hits the pavement and finally finds an employer willing to take a chance and pay him $6 an hour. This sounds great, but we have to remember that the government has decided to restrict this guy's freedom of contract. Thanks to the minimum wage, he can only get a job if he can find an employer willing to pay him $7.25 per hour. But since that's more than he's worth, politicians, for all intents and purposes, have sawed off the bottom rungs of the economic ladder. A policy that supposedly helps people has condemned our apathetical worker to joblessness and despair. What's really perverse is that minimum wage laws hurt the poor. If the minimum wage goes up, rich people don't lose their job. It's the kid at the fast food restaurant, the part-time worker at the mall, or the guy at the small business who wind up getting the axe. Some people claim that the minimum wage doesn't destroy jobs, and that is sometimes true, but only when the minimum wage is below the market rate for entry-level jobs. Up until a couple of years ago, the minimum wage was $5.15 per hour. I don't think the government should have any minimum wage because it restricts the freedom of contract, but I wasn't too upset about $5.15 minimum wage because in most parts of America, all jobs were paying above that level. In other words, market forces meant that businesses were willing to pay more than $5.15, even for young workers and those with poor work skills. But let's look at some disturbing real-world evidence. From 2006 to 2009, the minimum wage was dramatically increased from $5.15 to $7.25. That's an increase of more than 40%. No wonder youth unemployment has increased so dramatically. This has been especially bad for minorities. To be sure, there are other factors that may be causing unemployment to rise, including a bigger burden of government spending, but researchers using statistical analysis time and time again find that the minimum wage plays a key role in causing joblessness. Let's conclude with a question for those of you who still think the minimum wage is a good idea. If going from $5.15 to $7.25 was such a good idea, why don't we raise required pay to $100 per hour or $500 per hour? I think you get the point. Thank you for watching the Center for Freedom and Prosperity Economics 101 video. Please share it with your friends and colleagues.